All right. So, this is a video where I'm going to present to you a very quick look behind the scenes of the creation of our USP video. My name is Felix Hausler. I run Grape with an amazing team, and what I did over the weekend was a little project where I updated our product video basically in English and German. So I want to show you very quickly how I did it. So here are all the things you need, right? You need a microphone, of course. The one I'm currently using is the built-in one in my computer, which is not the best way to go. So I'm going to show you what I'm using for like professional recordings. You need Google Apps or something similar, Keynote, GarageBand for audio cutting and recording, iMovie for cutting the movies, and Vato Elements is basically an account where you can get like free stock videos, footage, etc. that you can use. QuickTime Play for screen recording. I'm currently doing exactly that. Photoshop or Sketch for graphic design, and then a few, I would say, soft topics you should be able to record in a professional advertisement voice, and storyboard, advanced keynote skills, recording and video cutting basics should also be on your professional list. And these are all things you can learn very easily, like especially the ad voice. It's basically listening to a few of those product videos and just, adapting that style. Very quick rundown of my equipment. So I'm using an audio unit. This is used for like more professional microphones, and you can connect it to MIDI keyboards and other things. So this is great for any kind of music production. Larger microphones require a so-called phantom connection if they are like passive microphones. However it works, it's a bit different then. Audio Technica 80-20-20 is a super low budget, like 90 euro mic, but you don't need to go top shelf for some of the audio recordings to make them sound nicely. In terms of professionalism, I think audio is far more important for professional product video than the visual part of it. It seems, at least to me, that the moment somebody has a microphone like the one I'm currently using, people zone out and are like, okay, this is not professional enough. Super important, ensure that you don't have too much hull in your room. So Lil Jon, the composer of the Yeah music video, somewhere around the 2000, like the millennia, he used, I think, a mattress in front of a cupboard to record. So you shouldn't be too scared to find a few adaptations in your room to ensure that the hall is less severe. Popping is basically when you go in front of the microphone. It shouldn't pop. So you either need something in front of it, like one of those foam thingies, or you just ensure that you don't directly blow into the microphone while talking, which is, of course, very hard to sustain for a long period of time, but that's also something you can fall back to when it becomes very severe. Yeah, and generally you have to ensure that your mic is not getting too loud. Like if you like it goes into overdrive if you talk too directly into it, and while you are recording, you can see if the lines of volume are going beyond the 0 dB line. That means then that you are overdoing it and you have to step back or talk a little bit more quietly. My setup at home due to Corona is a microphone that's hanging down from a training wall bar. Then I have the pop thingy to secure it. Then there's the 80-roll unit, and then my computer that has a small adapter to allow for the USB connection. That's basically it, and should get you through a nice recording session. So you can get a little bit creative with your setup rig here. So let's start with the storyboard. Everything starts with the content. You should one way of doing it is you use slides for each section of the story you want to tell. You should go through a few rewrites before you start really recording it, and get help from native speakers if, like me, you're not, from the US or from any English origin. There we go. This is how the storyboard looks. Basically, yeah, have the problem, the solution, then a few of the features are being described. My girlfriend did a few little comments on some of the sections. Most of them have been resolved though. And once you're done and got the okay from your peers, it's time to record the voice. So the first thing I'm doing is every time I shoot a product video like this is I go into GarageBand. In that case, I mean, you can use something more professional like Logic, Pro Tools, even Ableton Live, even though it's more for like music looping and so on. Whatever you use, you just need something that supports multiple layers, so multiple recording layers, because that's important for setting up your recording session properly. Then you go basically into GarageBand, you use one layer for recording, you put no effects on it. So this is basically the normal input of audio. And then you can have one or two layers above where you move your recordings to, and those things can have already some plugins on it. Like in my case, I have a channel EQ equalizer and a multipressor, which apparently, yeah, does a little bit of hard compression. And yeah, it ensures that the audio sounds crisp and works well. You can play a lot with the presets and read up on these parts. I don't want to cover too much of that. But yeah, in general, you basically record a section, then you pull up the one take you want to use. Ensure that you are aware of how to cut a recording quickly, like the one short key in GarageBand that you will use the most is Control T, so you can just go like tuk and can basically pull this into the next layer. And that's how I basically work. So I go through one section, cut out the piece I want, pull it back up, then I let the recording start a little bit earlier so I hear the last thing I said, then I record the next section, and so on until I'm finally done. Next up, we are moving, what else did I write down here? Record for both languages and try to hit the same mark. That's super important. If you record in English and German is far longer, so sometimes I had to adapt the English recording a little bit to ensure, like, for example, you can see it in many sections. Like, this is the same sentence as this one, and you can see German is a lot longer, so you have to make some proper pauses here if you want to use the exact same video material for both. Then you use presets for compressing your voice and so on, and once you think it's fine, you can export it, and you're good to go, starting with your audio text. So now comes the cool part, using Keynote as an animation system. I usually, like when there's more time, you can go into After Effects or something similar. But if you want to be just, slick and fast, you can definitely use Keynote. It can do a lot of the fun parts that any other real animation software can do. The magic transition is one of the greatest inventions ever. What it basically does is you go to a slide, so you have two slides, this one and this one, and the magic transition says every element you have on the screen will try to find itself on the next screen and basically position itself where it should be. So in this case, I want to move those little bubbly water effects over the screen to change the color scheme of the next slide. And so I have it over here outside of frame, and on the next one I have it inside. Let's click the magic button. What's happening is the thing goes directly over, with a little bit of a delay, over the previous slide. So if I were to copy this logo and move it, up here, what you would see in the next slide would be the logo moving up, or not. for whatever reason. Maybe I have like an animation where it moves away. No, that's very important. You need to remove all effects on the elements. So when I start this again and I have no effects on it, okay, this is now me trying to make something work live. Forget about it. It's too complicated right now to dive too deep into it. But with a few bugs and so on, you can make a lot of those transitions work nicely. And so you can, if I were to start off like this and move this over there, the exact opposite would happen on the next screen. And this is how the whole magic of it works. And I think you can get some amazing designs done with this. The second thing is the element transitions. So this is one slide that kind of starts with a logo of a company appearing, then 4 logos come in, the logo of your company disappearing, and the line is being drawn. So you can basically draw lines here with your little key tool. This is basically what I did. And then you can animate that line in a certain way you want it to go. Like you can say, okay, in my case, I wanted to have like a separator run through the screen. And so I'm using, you have, for each object, you have 3 kind of animations. One for it to come in that case, draw the line. Then you can have it like pop out or do something cool thing in the middle, like move somewhere else or change your opacity or spin or scale or whatever. Or this is something that happens a lot, like pop up, where it just goes like bloop to get the attention of the viewer. And then you kind of have the fade out animation if you want to use one. And so with those things in mind, you can, for example, have this thing appear. Later on, you don't do anything, and later on also nothing. But you can also, say I want this to pop up somewhere in the middle, and then you can decide if it should happen on click, which of course is not the case because we want to make a system that that animates automatically. So you can say either with the previous animation, so now it would go with the axis that disappear, or after the previous animation to have it wait basically for the previous thing to happen. You can also do some little additions, like you can say after the thing, but I also want to have a delay of 1 second, or I want it to happen with it, but I want it to start like half a second later. And those things are kind of everything you need to make this thing work very well. So let's run through this animation, for example. What happens is this thing appears, then the others appear, then the line is drawn, then those bubbles try to move, but go up in flames, so it's very hard to communicate, between tools and so on. This is what I'm trying to suggest here. Then I want these things to be, I want this thing to jump to the next screen, so I have a very easy, just like blend animation, where it just blends to the next thing. Here on this screen, I just work with appearing elements and then all of it basically falling out of the screen. So I have like one video recording, another one, and so on. They all pop in. And then when I'm done showing them, I just let them, transition out of the screen, which makes it super easy in terms of like screen setup, because every time you have a wide screen and so on, you can make a very easy cut later, and so on. That's also the most important part. Like these things might not always be timed perfectly for your voice, and it's very hard to get your voice into the system. You can upload your voice, but it always starts at the beginning. So when you start here, for example, it will still start at the first time your voice was being recorded, and so you cannot really use it. So what I'm doing is I make a longer section. That's for example, in this case, I think I have like a 1 minute text recording that I want to fill with those graphics, and I let every time I make a transition, I leave a little bit of space so I can cut it properly, right? So for example here, this is the end screen, and this will be used later on to kind of cut, so between the next shots, right? And so I wait a second, and this is enough to later in iMovie take this one frame and then spread it out or make it shorter and so on until the timing is right. Um, let's see. There is also like you can do some pretty incredible stuff. So here I want to show off how we are very secure and we get like security reviews, and so I have those cool lines falling in, attacking the thing, and then it gets shaken off and so on. And what, yeah, it's basically done in 13 steps on this keynote animation. So basically, I have the fortress appearing, then the grape logo, then this image appears, and then those lines are being drawn. The grape logo jumps again, and then at the same time the lines get drawn out, and the fortress shakes off basically the lines. You can see it's super simple, and it creates beautiful transitions. Yeah, and works very well. So yeah, once you master the magic transition and the transitions for the other elements, you're good to go. Ensure that you make auto transitions between all the elements, so you don't want it to wait for you. You can just go onto the main slide, and down here you don't select transition through click, but automatically. You can also make a delay every time, so you have good spaces where you can cut. Then, yeah, one important thing, reuse similar transitions and automations because you don't want this thing to, become super complicated or look like a weird, quirky video from the 90s. You want to use very simple transitions between everything. So I had those little walls that slide in basically for almost all animations, and then I had this appear thing, animation for objects that I wanted to have appear into the thing, even though they could spin in or explode or whatever. Keep it on the low. Yeah, make pauses to cut later. Split the keynote automations up in multiple projects. So as you can see, as I previously shown you, I have one for the security part, one for the big problem in the beginning, and so on, just so you don't have like a mental overload creating the whole thing, and don't have your keynotes become too big. So I think I put 10 keynotes together to make this thing work nice. Then use Envato graphics if you need, or fall back to keynote specific ones. So you have so one thing, if you go to elements in Envato, you kind of have beautiful animations and graphics and stock videos and so on, and it's all like for a fixed price. I'm not being paid to recommend them, but I think they're pretty good. So there are quite a few. Just ensure that you're not reusing the same that every other presentation has. Try to keep it a little bit in your own style and fashion. You can also adapt the graphics to have your company look and feel at least. Or you can just go into Keynote if you just want to use the normal shapes and so on, and use some of those elements that are in here. I used, for example, the bubble for messages. And the cool thing is you can have very specific drawings for these elements because they are vectorial graphics, and so you can have like a draw effect when they appear or something like that if you're into it. Last but not least, or not even last, but almost last but not least, you put everything together. For some reason, it couldn't render the screenshot that I put in for iMovie, but I can show it to you live. You go in here, and you basically take those sections that you recorded in Keynote, put in cuts when it doesn't fit your voice, so you upload your voice underneath, and then make things go slower or faster by pressing the right control button on an element, and or Control R, and get the tempo editor in, so you can then drag something a little bit out and make it become like 30 seconds long if needs be. To just ensure that all the elements are properly connected with the text. Let me just really quickly undo this insanity. And yeah, and press Control R again to get rid of it. And that's basically how I do it. So I record one keynote section, then I put it in here, then I reuse elements. Sometimes I have to copy one section because, for example, here I want this thing to stand a little bit longer. And then I have the next element, embed. I want to have this paired with this word embed. Then here I say search somewhere, and yeah, I spread it out basically to fit. Once I'm done with one section, I go back to Keynote and make the next animations and so on. And once I'm done with this, Oops. Where am I? Here. I'm basically, we're down to the last step, which is we have to add effects and music. So you take the movie you then put together in iMovie, you export it, you go back to GarageBand or to whatever system you have, and then you can watch the movie in real time and add little effects to it, make it sound nicely. And as you can see, I have all the effect layers very low set up, and music even more in the background, because it's all about the voice, right? You really want to have, you don't want to have your music overshadow the rest of it. The only time you should go a little bit louder with the music is maybe during an intro, and you can go up during the outro, and maybe if you don't speak for a certain section, if you just show a screen recording, for example, you can also in some mid sections have the music go up a little bit and then go down. But yeah, keep it simple, you know. With the effects, I always start with one effect for the transitions. So I think it's in here. Nope. Let's see, maybe it's over there. No. Okay, wait. There we have a transition. So it's down here, yeah. So it goes like. Nope. Still here above. Sorry. There we go. It's this little effect that just goes. And you can use a swoosh or something else, but you can also use like a more modern kind of effect. So all the transitions should have like a little sound bite. If somebody's typing, I love to put in like a little typing effects, like you can see, and so on. And yeah, as you can see, there could have been like 5 times as many effects, but I want people to focus on the voice. And so once I'm done with this, I just put out the audio again, put it back into iMovie for one last time, and then I bounce everything out into, in my case, a 720p video recording. So it's 1280 times 720 pixels, and then I upload it to YouTube. That's basically what I'm doing when I make one of those. The USP video should be online by the time you watch this, so please check it out and share it and so on. It's a super simple way of getting some nice presentational videos out, and I hope to see some of you create your own presentations soon. Have a good day.